you were obviously completely aware of the situation of Israel surrounded by nations whose entire raison d'etre is the elimination of Israel and the Jews and Jews globally and the West generally. So you went to, so you are obviously aware of that prior to October 7th and 8th, and then you went there. Did you have a plan? Did you know what you were going to be doing?
So before we left, we basically got in touch with everybody we knew who might have some connection with people in Israel on the ground. And I can't remember exactly who it was, but one of our friends connected us to a rabbi in Ofokim. And we spoke to him before we even left. A wonderful person who actually was so incredibly important to us. And he basically said we had an extraordinary thing that happened here in Ofokim. Ofokim is in the Gaza envelope, just a few miles from Gaza. And they'd had a lot of people had been killed there, but also there'd been an extraordinary fight back. But he talked about how many people he knew who had died, how many funerals he'd been to. And he said, look, you come to Ofokim and I will introduce you to people, particularly one off-duty police officer who had a gun and who had the most amazing story, and a beautiful family who had hidden under their solar panel, as I made the quite maybe inappropriate joke, was the first time a solar panel was ever useful. And that lovely family, had lost their son who had managed, they were all escaping out a window, and he was the last, and was killed by Hamas. So we went to Ofokim, but other people introduced us. A very good friend of ours introduced us to another lady who lives outside Tel Aviv, Dorit, and she introduced us to a lot of people as well. And it became this, and we also, obviously, we're journalists. This is what we do. So we phoned, we researched online, we got in touch with people, and then we arrived there. And one thing kind of led to another, and we hired a car, we drove down to the border area, started interviewing people there, and then somebody would say something like, and that guy then came and with his car, and we're like, oh, could we meet them? And it was interesting. I just thought of a story that I thought was interesting. One of the people we interviewed was a girl, a lovely young person who was at the Nova party and survived, and had an amazing story to tell. And she hid for hours and hours, and was scared to put her phone on because there was a whole sense that Hamas might have an ability to locate people through their phones. And she eventually turned the phone on, and whatever, and the boyfriend gave the message to the boyfriend. There was a whole drama with that. But then the boyfriend said to her on the phone, be really careful. Hamas are in the area, and they have white vans that look like ours, and they're posing as IDF. And so be very, very careful. Not long after that, and she had been hiding for a few hours with quite a number of people under a whole big thorn bush situation. And this guy drives up in a white pickup and starts saying names, and they're very Israeli names. And somebody in the group shouts out, I'm here. And she said, shut up. This is probably Hamas. But then the list gets longer and longer, and she realizes he's actually got the names of everybody that's there, and he's actually a good guy. And his name was Leon from Gadara. He's very famous. People can look him up. A lot of people maybe listening to this know who Leon from Gadara is. So we interview Shani, this wonderful girl, Shani Arditi, and we interview her about 3 hours, come to the end, and she's telling the story. And by the way, we were breathless throughout. She gets to this moment, and I'm like, oh my God, Leon from Gadara. And she said, he didn't have a weapon, and we all got into the back of this van, and he saved all these people. And I'm like, oh my God. So, and in the way that I've just described it to you, I said, have you talked to him? Because we'd like to talk to Leon. And she went, yeah, on October 8th, he went out with his son to try to save other people. And he saw a car that was wrecked on the side of the road, and he thought, maybe there's somebody here we can help. And he got out, and it was an ambush. And he was shot dead by Hamas, and his son was shot in both his legs. His son has survived. But that I suppose the reason I tell that is because that was October 8th. And this is exactly when we were in Ireland, and people were saying to us, oh, they turned the electricity off. While this wonderful, wonderful man, Leon, famous Leon from Gadara, was shot dead by Hamas on October 8th.